So last winter, early spring, it's probably like February, March 2024, we had a big windstorm, and in our neighborhood there's lots of big oak trees, and there was a windy, rainy storm, and it knocked a whole bunch of lichen down. So I went around, walked a few blocks, and brought back like two shopping bags full worth of lichen. Two different kinds of lichen, and I can't remember the names of them. Anyways, one that can give purple dye and one that's more like yellow. And so I had the one with the purple in ammonia, and last summer, after a few months of sitting, I had used some of it and dyed this. It's kind of a gray purple, kind of mauve. And then I haven't dyed anymore, and I have a whole bunch of other jars that have just been sitting. So today I'm going to finally, I've had wool soaking, so we will give it another go. Okay, so here are all my jars. So many jars of lichen that I've been brewing in ammonia since at least last summer, last spring. Now I know everything I read says you need to keep them at an even temperature and don't let them get below stuff, but I didn't really want to I didn't have a good place inside my house to keep, that I wanted to keep jars of ammonia. I have kids, they're not as small as they used to be, they know not to touch stuff, but still didn't seem like a good idea with just the potential for accidents. So they've been sitting on my porch through all the weather. And the last couple of weeks, it has been unusually cold for us in the Pacific Northwest. It's been below freezing at night, every night for the last couple of weeks, but they haven't frozen. So probably the ammonia keeps, I don't know. Anyways, so we'll see what color. Usually I weigh things, but today I didn't weigh my wool. We're just gonna mix some up and see what happens. Let's see, I don't know. Some of these are different colors. Some seem to be more red than others. Purpley. That one's pretty red. Okay, why don't we try this? And I'm thinking I might pour 2 or 3 jars worth of solution in here. Squeeze that. It's a really dark color. Good. See, it's quite, I don't know, it may be similar to the amount of wool I dyed before. So we'll see if I can add enough dye solution and see if we can get a darker color. I do really love the lovely light purple color that the other turned out, but it would be fun to see if we can get it darker. Just leave it there. Okay. This one. This looks a little more green or brownish. Red. Try this one. Ugh. If the lid will come off. Am I stronger than my lid? Ow. Okay, there we go. It's definitely a little bit more brownish, that one. Let's see. That one might be a good one as well. Yeah, that one's brownish. Yeah, that one's a pretty good purple color. It's quite dark there. Ammonia. Woohoo. So I'm gonna dye this in my slow cooker outside because I don't want all this ammonia stinking up the house. I'm gonna add water. Try not to splash this all over myself. Let's see. Does one? Maybe get me the other. On, or does it not want to work anymore since it's been sitting outside? Yeah. Oh no, it doesn't have a light. Never mind. We'll just set it to high, and I guess we'll check back later to make sure it's actually turning on. Okay, and sweater. Add our wool now. And I don't remember which wool this was. I got in a bunch of free fleeces and a year or two ago from somewhere. Oh, yeah. And some of them had been labeled and some of them not. And I don't remember what fleece this was. Got a little bit of EM, but it'll be fine. Okay. Slip that in there. So I guess we'll see. We'll see if we can get a rich color like what it's looking at now. That would be really fun. Okay. Is it getting warm? Can't tell. Alright, well, I'm gonna put the lid on and I'll check on it in 20 or 30 minutes to see if it's getting warm. Good morning. It's the next day, and let's check on our lichen dye to see what color we got. Okay, I let the slow cooker go for multiple hours yesterday. I don't know, I didn't really keep track. And then I turned it off and just let it soak overnight. So let's see what kind of color we've got. So our dye liquid is a really deep purple color. Let's get it out of the pot and get it rinsing to see what color the wool will come out. And of course, natural dyes don't exhaust in the same way that acid dyes do. Ooh, ammonia smells still pretty strong. But I may Let me keep this exhaust bath just to try. I don't know, we'll see. Let's see what color we get off this wool, and then I'll decide whether to keep the exhaust bath for another go or not. Okay, is that all? Nope, there's still some more. Okay, is that on the wall? I think so. Okay, I'll give it a little bit of a squeeze. Colander. Okay. I've got a pot of water. Go ahead. Dump that in there. Okay. So I'm gonna let that sit to rinse while I get some more water so I can do. And I think it's gonna take multiple rinses. All right, friends. Oh, here is. Oh, let me put my gloves back on. So I did a final rinse of the lichen dyed wool. And it's looking like it turned out still pretty light colored, pretty similar in color to the wool I had dyed previously. So obviously this is still wet, but it's probably only gonna get lighter as it dries. So it's very, very light, kind of mauve-y, grayish purple color, which is quite lovely. I do still have more bottles of the fermented lichen. So my thought is, I have this skein that we made, small skein. It weighs 18 grams that I spun on my antique wheel. So my thought is, it's a lot less wool than this. So I'm going to use the last of my lichen, the rest of the bottles of the lichen dye stuff, and we will dye just this one small skein and see what kind of color we get. So while I get the dye stuff strained, I'm going to pop this in the water to soak. Okay, so it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 jars full. Well, not full, but 7 jars. Okay, that step. Yeah, that stuff needs to get repaired. That wood is rotting. Okay, we have 7 jars with lichen dye stuff. I'm going to strain into here, and we shall see if 7 jarfuls, however much that is enough to dye the 18-gram skein of wool a darker color. Let's see. if I'm strong enough to open the jars. So glad my husband taught me that trick of banging to break the seal. Oops. And some of these are more brown than red, so I guess we should. Which probably means they probably had more twigs and or maybe more of the other type of lichen in with them. I still need to look up the names of the ones that I sort of semi-identify them as. I think one of them is the usnea. I think that's the one that gives more of a brown or yellow. And I can't remember. Ooh. Ah! Okay, well, I guess we're going to do 6 jars of lichen dye. Because I spilled that one. I'll have to hose down the porch after that. Oh. Well, at least I didn't spill it all over myself. I suppose the downside of this is that the ammonia content's going to be pretty high in this dye bath, so it may make the yarn, the wool, may affect the softness of the wool, but oh well, that's okay. I've kind of had the thought of using some of this lichen dyed wool as to embroider probably this sweater. This sweater's a Tyrolean style cardigan from a 1940s, well, in a book, but based on a 1940s pattern that I hand spun all the wool for it and knitted. And a lot of the Tyrolean cardigans will have embroidery edition on it. And so I thought of adding embroidery to it and thought that could be a fun project for some of my lichen dyed wool. So we shall see. Ah! Oh goodness. What a mess I'm making. I think it's going to be a miracle if I don't splash any of this all over me. Suppose I should be wearing safety goggles. Woo. Goodness gracious. Oof. The ammonia. Oof. Okay. Okay, I'm going to add in this after exhaust bath from the last batch, in case there's some extra dye particles left in there. Okay, well, I'm going to keep letting my yarn soak for about a half an hour or so. I've got my, did I turn it on? No, it's plugged in. Now it's turned on. We'll let that start heating up while the yarn soaks a little bit and while I trying to clean up the mess I made all over my porch. Here is how the fiber and the yarn turned out that we dyed in this video. As I draw up things all over the floor. Okay, so this is definitely more of a gray purple tone, and this is more of a very light pinky color. And then if we compare that, so then here is the wool that I had dyed with the lichen last summer, and it's pretty similar. I think this is probably a Romney, and this might be Cheviot. Just it's a little bit duller, and this has got a little bit of sheen to it, which is probably Romney. And so these purple colors, they were all dyed with this type of lichen. I believe in my very limited, using my Google search to identify lichens, I believe it is Irvinia. Let's see. I'll put it on the screen because I don't know exactly how to pronounce this. Evernia prunastri, also known as oakmoss. This lichen is what I fermented in the ammonia bath, and we got this color. So this is the book. It's called Craft of the Dyer, Color from Plants and Lichens by Karen Lee Castleman. And it has a section all about lichen. And so she names some of the different lichens that you can get and the colors, the boiling water method versus the ammonia fermentation. It also mentions that it might be possible if you use vinegar. So you ferment the lichen in the ammonia, and then when you go to dye with it, you can if you add vinegar to lower the pH, you can get different colors. So with this, I just dyed. I didn't add any vinegar because I think it's when it's the highest pH is when it's going to give purple. And I did, water that down then with water. I diluted the ammonia dye bath with water, but I'm sure it was still probably a high pH. I should probably buy some pH test strips to eventually maybe do more comparisons and try different things. I haven't spun any of this wool. I did process a tiny bit, but I haven't spun it yet. But I don't think it feels too harsh. Just touching it, it doesn't feel like brittle or coarse. Yeah, and so then this was a different color, and I could tell oh look, I found my test skein from my antique spinning wheel. I forgot until I was editing this video that this is what I did with that first skein. I put it in the dye. So this test skein, yes, it ended up more of a pink toned color versus the more purple of the other. And I could tell, the jars of dye stuff that I was adding were a different color. So I don't know if there was just more contamination of other kinds of lichen and or bark or moss. I wasn't super picky about picking every last little bit out when I was fermenting it. So I don't know if that is the case or if this happened to be a different pH. Don't know. But it is definitely a little bit of a different color, so that's fun. And then the other kind of lichen, I'm pretty sure I said this before, that that we have a bunch of oak trees in my neighborhood, and when the wind blows, it rains lichen. And the most common, the kinds that have fallen down there are this oak moss, and then this other kind is Oh, goodness. What is it? Usnea. So I think a lot of times they call it old man's beard. And I think this is either Usnea subfloridana or maybe Usnea hirta. And that last summer I had made some dye stuff from the Usnea, and those gave me these lovely, this kind of a beigey cream color, and then this more little bit of a yellow. And I think this one I shifted the pH with some vinegar, I think, if I'm remembering right, because I didn't write it down. But these lovely colors, yeah, came from this lichen. And then there's another kind of lichen that is on the trees that I'm not sure, I haven't identified yet. I don't know if it would give color or not. But it is this stuff. But I didn't bother trying to identify it because when I was trying to pick it off just to see, it just seemed like it came off with a bunch of bark on it. So I thought it would be hard to get it. And it's so small that it just seemed like it would be hard to get much of that. It would be a lot of work to get much of that lichen free from bark and other debris in order to see what color it would potentially give. Gertie update. My kids gave her some accessories. Let's see, my older daughter had this little bracelet that she decided would be Gertie's necklace, and my younger daughter made Gertie a cute little crown. So Gertie's got some bling now. And all right, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. Lichen, both the colors of lichen, all that. Miss Gertie, book, lichen. All right, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye. Jars of dye. Oh, no! Thanks for watching. And I think that's everything. Are there other things to say?